Aging brings with it wisdom, life experiences, and valuable lessons that can benefit families and communities. However, it also introduces subtle habits that may unintentionally strain relationships. By recognizing these behaviors and taking steps to adjust them, older adults can foster deeper connections with loved ones, improving their emotional well-being and creating a more harmonious environment. Let's explore these habits in detail, using real-life examples to provide actionable insights. 1. Neglecting personal hygiene, a quiet barrier to connection. Personal hygiene is something many of us take for granted. It's an automatic part of our daily routine, seamlessly woven into the fabric of our lives. Yet, for older adults, maintaining these routines can become increasingly challenging due to physical, emotional, and psychological barriers. Harold, a 75-year-old retired mechanic from Chicago, exemplifies this struggle. Once proud of his appearance, Harold always greeted the world with a firm handshake, neatly combed hair, and clean-pressed clothes. However, after losing his wife and developing chronic back pain and fatigue, Harold's enthusiasm for self-care dwindled. His grooming habits, once a source of pride, became burdensome tasks he avoided. As isolation crept in, Harold began to believe that his appearance no longer mattered. "Who's going to notice?" he thought. The physical and emotional impact of hygiene neglect. As Harold's daily hygiene routines slipped, the repercussions extended beyond his physical health. His neglect led to noticeable changes, wearing the same clothes repeatedly, skipping showers, and foregoing dental care. These lapses caused him to develop an unpleasant odor, which made social interactions awkward. Harold's daughter Emma found herself visiting less frequently, uncomfortable with the changes in her father's hygiene. The emotional impact was just as profound. Harold's self-esteem plummeted, and feelings of isolation deepened. The physical consequences of neglect were also serious. Harold developed a painful skin irritation that his doctor attributed to insufficient bathing. He had never imagined that something as simple as a shower could prevent such discomfort. Additionally, his dental health declined, increasing his risk of infections and gum disease. These compounding effects further eroded Harold's quality of life. Why hygiene matters. Hygiene is about more than just cleanliness. It's integral to maintaining dignity, self-esteem, and social connections. Cleanliness influences how others perceive us, but more importantly, it impacts how we perceive ourselves. When hygiene is neglected, it can signal deeper emotional struggles such as depression or a loss of motivation. Beyond social and emotional consequences, poor hygiene can lead to serious health complications, including infections and skin conditions, as Harold experienced. Solutions to reclaim dignity and health. The road to reclaiming Harold's sense of self began with small, manageable changes. His grandson Jake, recognizing Harold's struggles, stepped in to help. Together, they created a simple hygiene checklist, which was pinned to Harold's bathroom mirror as a daily reminder. Jake introduced practical tools, such as a long-handled brush for showering and no-rinse cleansing wipes, to make grooming less daunting. The turning point came when Harold began scheduling weekly grooming sessions with Emma. These moments not only helped Harold maintain his hygiene, but also fostered a sense of connection with his family. What once felt like a chore became an opportunity for bonding, transforming Harold's routine into a source of emotional support and joy. Key takeaway. Neglecting personal hygiene isn't just about cleanliness, it's about preserving dignity, health, and relationships. By addressing the underlying causes of neglect and implementing small, thoughtful solutions, older adults like Harold can reclaim their confidence and strengthen bonds with their loved ones. 2. Complaining about everything. Breaking the cycle of negativity. Complaining is a behavior many people fall into without realizing its impact. While occasional gripes can be harmless, constant negativity can strain relationships and create emotional distance. Margaret, a 74-year-old retired librarian from Boston, found herself caught in this cycle. Margaret had always been outspoken, sharing her opinions on politics, technology, and the changing world around her. At first, her family found her remarks endearing, often chuckling at her candid observations. Her grandson Ben would dismiss her grumbles with, "That's just grandma being grandma." However, over time, Margaret's complaints became less humorous and more draining, dominating conversations at family gatherings. The root of negativity. Margaret's habitual complaining wasn't malicious. It stemmed from deeper emotions: loneliness, frustration, and a sense of being left behind in a rapidly evolving world. As her surroundings changed, Margaret struggled to feel relevant. Complaining became her way of asserting herself and expressing her dissatisfaction with the world she no longer fully understood. However, this behavior came at a cost. Her daughter-in-law, Julie, began retreating from conversations to avoid the steady stream of negativity. Margaret's son, James, started shortening phone calls, steering clear of topics that might lead to another complaint. Family dinners, once filled with laughter, became tense and heavy, overshadowed by Margaret's relentless focus on what was wrong. The emotional toll of complaining research reveals that habitual complaining reinforces negative thought patterns, increasing stress and deepening feelings of dissatisfaction. For Margaret, focusing on what irritated her made it harder to see the positives in her life. This not only isolated her further, but also created a ripple effect, impacting her family's willingness to engage with her. Turning negativity into positivity. The shift began when Ben, with his characteristic bluntness, shared his feelings. "Grandma, I love you, but it's hard to hang out when you're always upset." Though Margaret initially felt hurt, Ben's honesty prompted her to reflect. She realized her complaints were pushing away the people she cared about most. Margaret decided to make a change, starting with a daily gratitude journal. Each evening, she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for. At first, her entries were simple: a sunny day, a good book, but over time they became more meaningful. She began noticing the little joys in her life, like Ben's continued visits and the kindness of her neighbors. In addition to her journaling practice, Margaret consciously shifted her conversations. Instead of diving into complaints, she started asking her family questions about their lives. "How was your day?" Or, "What are you excited about lately?" This approach opened the door to deeper, more positive interactions. The impact was immediate. Family gatherings became enjoyable again, with laughter and meaningful conversations replacing the tension. Margaret's family noticed the change and responded with warmth and enthusiasm, reinforcing her efforts. Key takeaway: breaking the habit of constant complaining requires intentional effort but yields profound rewards. By practicing gratitude and showing interest in others, older adults like Margaret can create a more uplifting environment, fostering stronger relationships and rediscovering joy in everyday life. 3. Dominating conversations, balancing wisdom and active listening. Frank, a retired professor with a storied academic career, had always enjoyed sharing his experiences. His family admired his tales of teaching at prestigious universities, meeting intellectual luminaries, and exploring historical landmarks. However, as much as his stories fascinated his loved ones, they often left little room for others to share their thoughts, leading to feelings of frustration and disconnect. When sharing becomes overbearing, family gatherings, which were supposed to be opportunities for everyone to bond and share, increasingly became one-sided conversations dominated by Frank's anecdotes. During a Sunday lunch at his daughter Laura's home, Frank's grandson Alex eagerly began talking about a school project that he had poured his heart into. He described the innovative ideas he was exploring, clearly excited to share his progress. Before Alex could finish, Frank interjected, "That reminds me of the time I gave a lecture at Harvard." He launched into a detailed account of his experience, describing the grandeur of the university, the intellectual rigor of the audience, and the questions he fielded during his talk. The story, while captivating, consumed nearly 15 minutes of the conversation. By the time Frank finished, Alex's enthusiasm had faded. Feeling overlooked and discouraged, Alex retreated into silence, and the energy at the table shifted. Understanding Frank's intentions. Frank's habit of dominating conversations wasn't born out of malice. On the contrary, it stemmed from a desire to connect with his family by sharing what he thought were valuable lessons and experiences. Frank viewed his storytelling as a way to impart wisdom, teach life lessons, and bridge generational gaps. However, his intentions didn't align with the impact of his actions. Instead of fostering connection, his habit of monopolizing conversations made others feel undervalued and overshadowed. For Alex and other younger family members, Frank's stories began to feel less like opportunities for shared dialogue and more like lectures. While they respected his experiences, they also longed for the chance to express their own thoughts and share their own stories. Shifting to active listening. The turning point came when Laura decided to address the issue with her father. In a private conversation, she gently said, "Dad, we love hearing your stories. They're amazing, but sometimes Alex and the others feel like they don't get a chance to share what's on their minds. They want to feel heard too." Initially, Frank was defensive. "I'm just trying to share with them," he replied. "Don't they appreciate what I've been through?" However, after some reflection, Frank realized Laura's words had merit. He genuinely didn't want to alienate his family, especially his grandchildren, whom he deeply cared for. Determined to change, Frank decided to approach conversations differently. At the next family gathering, when Alex began discussing his school project, Frank resisted the urge to interject. Instead, he listened attentively and asked, "What excites you most about your project?" Alex's face lit up as he described his ideas and the challenges he was tackling. This small shift in Frank's approach created a noticeable difference in the atmosphere. Alex felt valued and appreciated, and the conversation flowed more naturally. When Alex finished speaking, Frank shared a related story about a time he worked on a similar project during his career. Because the exchange felt balanced, his contribution was well received, and everyone at the table remained engaged. Key takeaway: active listening is essential for fostering inclusive and meaningful conversations. By balancing storytelling with genuine interest in others, older adults like Frank can create environments where everyone feels valued. This approach not only strengthens family connections, but also ensures that their wisdom is shared in a way that enhances rather than dominates the dialogue. 4. Insisting on respect without reciprocity. Evelyn, a retired nurse, grew up in an era where respect for elders was a cultural norm, unquestioned and automatic. Throughout her life, she held firmly to the belief that age and experience alone were enough to command deference from younger generations. However, as societal values evolved, Evelyn's unwavering stance on respect began to clash with the perspectives of her grandchildren, particularly her 16-year-old granddaughter, Chloe. The generational divide. At a family barbecue, Chloe excitedly shared her plans to pursue a career in graphic design. Her passion was evident as she described the creative projects she had been working on and the aspirations she had for her future. However, Evelyn, viewing Chloe's choice as impractical, dismissed it outright. "Back in my day," she said, "young people respected their elders without questioning them. You need to listen to those who know better." Chloe, who had hoped for encouragement and interest from her grandmother, felt hurt and dismissed. She walked away from the conversation, leaving Evelyn confused and frustrated. Evelyn couldn't understand why Chloe had reacted so strongly. After all, she thought she was offering guidance rooted in her years of experience. Why this divide exists. Evelyn's insistence on respect being automatically granted was deeply ingrained in her upbringing. In her generation, age was synonymous with authority, and elders were seen as the ultimate source of wisdom. However, younger generations like Chloe's view respect as a mutual exchange. They believe that respect should be earned through actions, empathy, and understanding, rather than being based solely on age or status. For Chloe, Evelyn's dismissive tone wasn't just about her career choice. It symbolized a lack of validation for her individuality and aspirations. To Chloe, respect wasn't about agreeing with every decision, but about taking the time to listen and understand her perspective. Bridging the divide. Evelyn's son Mark, noticing the growing tension between his mother and daughter, decided to intervene. In a private conversation, he explained, "Mom, Chloe looks up to you, but when you dismiss her dreams, it makes her feel like you don't respect her opinions. If you listen to her more, I think she'd be more willing to listen to you." Though initially resistant, Evelyn began to reflect on Mark's words. She realized that her approach had been one-sided and that she was holding Chloe to a standard she wasn't meeting herself. Determined to rebuild their connection, Evelyn decided to approach her next interaction with Chloe differently. At their next family gathering, when Chloe mentioned her plans for graphic design, Evelyn took a deep breath and said, "What excites you about graphic design? I'd love to hear more about what you're working on." Chloe, initially surprised by the change in tone, began to share her passion for the field, describing her creative process and the goals she had set for herself. As Chloe spoke, Evelyn listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and offering encouragement. This small but significant shift in Evelyn's approach transformed their conversation. Chloe felt validated and respected, and Evelyn discovered a newfound appreciation for Chloe's determination and creativity. Key takeaway: respect is a two-way street. For older adults like Evelyn, embracing the evolving perspectives of younger generations can lead to deeper, more meaningful relationships. By showing genuine interest and valuing the opinions of others, they can create an environment of mutual trust and appreciation. This not only strengthens family bonds, but also ensures that their wisdom is shared in a way that uplifts and empowers the next generation. 5. Minimizing the feelings of younger generations. A barrier to connection. Robert, a 72-year-old retired engineer from Dallas, prided himself on his resilience and the lessons he learned through years of hard work and sacrifice. He believed his experiences navigating economic challenges, raising 3 children, and balancing demanding responsibilities gave him a strong sense of perspective on life's challenges. When Robert's 20-year-old granddaughter Emily confided in him about her struggles balancing school, a part-time job, and her social life, he responded with a comment he thought was reassuring. "That's nothing. When I was your age, I worked full-time, went to school at night, and had to take care of my younger siblings." The impact of minimization. To Robert, this statement was meant to highlight his ability to overcome challenges and encourage Emily to persevere. However, Emily didn't hear encouragement. She felt dismissed. Rather than receiving the empathy she needed, she perceived Robert's response as a way of minimizing her stress. It made her feel as though her struggles were insignificant compared to his. Over time, Emily became increasingly hesitant to confide in her grandfather. Their conversations grew shorter and more superficial, and the once close bond they shared began to erode. The disconnect stemmed from a generational divide in how challenges are perceived. To Robert, sharing his hardships was an attempt to provide context and reassurance. But for Emily, it felt like her feelings were invalidated, creating a barrier to emotional connection. Understanding the root of comparison. Robert's tendency to compare Emily's struggles to his own was rooted in his desire to offer perspective. Like many older adults, Robert believed that recounting his own experiences could provide Emily with valuable lessons. He hoped to show her that the challenges she faced were manageable, just as his had been. However, Robert failed to recognize that each stage of life brings unique struggles. While his experiences were undoubtedly significant, Emily's stress about managing her academic responsibilities and part-time job was just as real to her as his challenges had been to him. Minimizing the feelings of younger generations, even unintentionally, sends a message that their emotions aren't valid. Over time, this can create emotional distance and prevent meaningful conversations from taking place. Choosing validation over comparison. The turning point came when Robert's daughter, Lisa, gently pointed out the impact of his words. "Dad," she said, "Emily looks up to you, but when you compare her challenges to yours, it makes her feel like her problems don't matter. She needs your support, not your comparisons." Robert, though initially defensive, took Lisa's words to heart. He hadn't realized how his comments were affecting Emily. Determined to rebuild their relationship, he decided to approach their conversations differently. The next time Emily shared her struggles, Robert resisted the urge to compare her situation to his own. Instead, he said, "That sounds like a lot to handle. How are you managing everything?" His empathetic response encouraged Emily to open up, and their conversation became more meaningful. As Emily shared her thoughts and feelings, Robert listened attentively, asking follow-up questions to show his genuine interest. For the first time in months, Emily felt heard and supported. Their bond began to strengthen, and Robert realized that his role wasn't to compare, but to validate. Key takeaway: validating the emotions of younger generations fosters empathy, trust, and meaningful connections. By listening without judgment and offering support rather than comparison, older adults like Robert can create an environment where younger family members feel valued and understood. 6. Criticizing modern habits. Bridging the generational gap. Linda, a 73-year-old retired small business owner from Portland, prided herself on her disciplined upbringing and traditional values. Family dinners were sacred to her, a time for conversation, connection, and storytelling. Her grandson, Ethan, a 17-year-old high school student, had a different perspective. For him, technology was an integral part of his daily life. Whether texting friends, researching for school projects, or exploring his hobbies, his smartphone was rarely out of reach. The root cause of criticism. Linda's frustration with Ethan's phone use reached a tipping point during a family dinner. As Ethan scrolled through his phone, she snapped, "When I was your age, we didn't waste time on gadgets. We talked to each other face to face and worked hard for everything we had. You kids are too distracted by your phones to appreciate what really matters." Ethan, caught off guard by the sharp critique, tried to explain that he was texting about a school project, but the mood at the table had already shifted. Feeling judged and misunderstood, Ethan retreated into silence, scrolling through his phone for the rest of the meal. Linda's criticism stemmed from a longing for meaningful connections during family gatherings. She believed Ethan's phone use disrupted the tradition of face-to-face interaction she cherished. However, her approach focused on disapproval rather than understanding, which only created tension and emotional distance. The consequences of criticism. Linda's sharp words unintentionally alienated Ethan. Her well-meaning critique felt like an attack, and he became less willing to engage in conversations during family meals. Linda, in turn, felt her attempts to connect with her grandson were being ignored, deepening her frustration. This cycle of criticism and withdrawal is a common dynamic in intergenerational relationships. Older adults, like Linda, often view modern habits through the lens of their own upbringing, leading to misunderstandings and unintentional conflict. Transforming criticism into curiosity. The turning point came when Linda's daughter Sarah decided to intervene. "Mom," she said gently, "Ethan feels like you're always criticizing him. He's a good kid, and he's doing a lot of amazing things. Maybe instead of focusing on what you don't like about his phone use, you could ask him what he's working on or why it's important to him." At the next family dinner, Linda took Sarah's advice to heart. When Ethan pulled out his phone, Linda resisted the urge to criticize. Instead, she asked, "What's the coolest thing you've learned recently from your phone or online?" Ethan, surprised by her curiosity, looked up and smiled. He eagerly began explaining a new app he was using to learn coding and create his own projects. Linda listened attentively, asking follow-up questions about his interests and what he hoped to achieve. Their conversation, once filled with tension, transformed into a genuine moment of connection. Linda discovered that Ethan's phone wasn't just a source of distraction, it was a tool for learning, creativity, and exploration. The benefits of curiosity. By replacing criticism with curiosity, Linda was able to bridge the generational gap and foster a stronger relationship with Ethan. She realized that understanding his perspective didn't mean abandoning her values. It simply meant showing respect for his experiences and choices. Ethan, in turn, felt validated and appreciated. He became more open to engaging in conversations with Linda, both about his interests and about her stories from the past. Key takeaway: criticism often stems from a desire to connect, but it can create unintended barriers. By approaching modern habits with curiosity and understanding, older adults like Linda can build stronger relationships with younger generations. Replacing judgment with genuine interest fosters respect and creates opportunities for meaningful dialogue, allowing families to celebrate both their differences and shared experiences. Conclusion: building bridges across generations. The habits explored here, neglecting hygiene, complaining, dominating conversations, insisting on respect, minimizing emotions, and criticizing modern habits, are often unintentional but can strain relationships. By addressing these behaviors with empathy, curiosity, and active listening, older adults can create deeper, more meaningful connections with loved ones. The key to intergenerational harmony lies in mutual understanding and adaptability. With small, intentional changes, families can foster environments of respect, support, and love, ensuring that relationships flourish across all stages of life.